There is no question about it. This virus has put capitalism on trial, and there's no greater example of capitalism than the Hollywood studio system. I am absolutely astonished of every Hollywood studio's handling of the pandemic. Now, in terms of production and making the stuff, they've been top drawer. They've found new systems, new ways of filming. That is A+. That is fantastic. But what's the good in making this content if you're going to keep on postponing it? They know that movie theatres are not viable anymore. B, they are not willing to support movie theatres theatrically. They are not willing to release their content into movie theatres because they know not enough people will go into the theatres to watch the movies. That one is totally understandable. But let me give you an analogy. Hollywood have decided to take the kind of stance like I did many, many years ago when I was dumped by my girlfriend and I used to live upon hope that she would say, "Hey Mick, take me back." This is how they see the pandemic. This is how they see the theatrical system. They're sitting there hoping for a vaccine. It's like they're not listening to the science. They're not seeing what's happening to the world. They don't understand. This virus has changed the world forever. And in my opinion, this world will never go back to the way it was. Period. There will never be a vaccine. And I'll tell you why there'll never be a vaccine. Because there's never been a vaccine for a coronavirus. The influenza virus is the king member of the coronavirus. There's never been a vaccine. The best we can hope for this virus is that actually they create some kind of paracetamol tablet which subside the symptoms and then allow your body to do the rest of the talking. That'll be a good thing. But a vaccine, no, we'll still have to wear masks. We'll still have to social distance. That is the future. People will still get this. Weaker people will get medication. Some of them will live. Some of them will die. But of course, it won't be as bad as, people dying within the thousands, right? But there will still be massive infections. But you will be given medication, not a vaccine. You see, paracetamol for influenza or sore throat isn't a vaccine, but it does subside the symptoms. Why am I going into the medical stuff? Because I think it's important for everyone, including Hollywood, to understand. I just saw someone talking about No Time to Die, the latest Bond movie. Oh, I don't want to see this film at home. I want to see it in the cinema. A portion of this movie was shot in IMAX. Why don't people understand? We all understand. The difference between you and me is that I'm a realist. If this film and other films like this film are not viewed at home via streaming, we may never see these films. Do you understand? B, the streaming system is absolutely viable for a film like No Time to Die to bring back around $1 billion global. Easy. You can release it theatrically where you can. You can release it via pay-per-view on streaming platforms. That's what you can do. There's no issue there. The money will come in. This is the mistake that Tenet made and Warner Brothers. They wanted to test out the theatrical system. Now, I'm astounded by this. Christopher Nolan was the driving force because, again, most of the films he makes have portions of IMAX, a film with IMAX cameras. Not everything, of course, but some of the stuff. He was very passionate about people seeing this in the movie theatre. But as a studio, you have to say, you know what, Chris? I know you have rights here. You're the director. Your production company's involved and you have a right, you have a voice, but we are not going to make the money back here. Now, we are quite willing to release this theatrically, but we also want to release it globally on streaming pay-per-view. Then they would have made all their money back and they would have made a big profit. They got their money back and then some, but not enough. It wasn't a viability. It didn't work. The experiment was never going to work. And this is what astounds me about this industry. It's like they don't do the maths. They do the maths normally, but this is the problem with capitalism over socialism. And if you notice, the countries dealing with this pandemic the best are socialist countries, like the Scandinavians. You see, it's very interesting to me that when Sweden decided to do the herd immunity, and many people deny this is the case, but they did, they were under a lot of pressure at first because many people were getting infected, record amounts of people were dying in care homes. It was terrible. But as the weeks and months progressed and more people were infected, they became immune. And now they're walking around free. There's not an issue because they had a chance to deal with it. Now, it's important I talk about the actual pandemic versus Hollywood. It's important to understand. You look at the UK, Boris Johnson went on to this morning and said maybe we'll have to take it on the chin. He was thinking about herd immunity, but he couldn't withstand the pressure. So he didn't make a decision. He didn't make the decision to lock down. He didn't make the decision to do herd immunity. So it's a mess. And this is what capitalism is. Capitalism wants to hold on to its old ways of making money because money is power. And this is how they control people through music and films and perfumes and everything and laptops, whatever, right? This is how they control us and keep us going to work and paying our taxes. But without the money, without the things they can provide and make money from those things, they have no control of us. And this is the problem. And as I say, capitalism is dying because if there's a virus out there that stops people going to work, in the end, the global government's money will run out. They won't be able to subsidize people anymore. It won't be this year, it won't be next year, but sometime soon, that is the realism. Hollywood, economically, is one of the probably top 5 money-making ways, right? Economically, that provides America a lot of money. They're one of the top systems of bringing in money into the country. This year, they have their deals with streamers. They make money off Blu-rays and DVDs and things like that. They're still making money and they have subsidiary companies, of course. But you're talking about a system that makes $1 billion globally, a movie, a big movie, a blockbuster. How many blockbusters have they released this year? Tenet, Birds of Prey, which was a washout, even just before the pandemic. They haven't released anything else. They've delayed everything. And I think you can see how messy this studio system is and their relationship with movie theatres. When Trolls Worldwide did so well over on Amazon Prime, and then these theatre companies were threatening not to allow Universal to broadcast their movies in their movie theatres. A stupid threat that wasn't going to work. It was like a child saying, I'm not talking to you anymore because you're more friendly than Billy than you are with me. In the end, they had to back down the movie theatres because it was stupid. Now, one of the reasons that movie studios are hesitating to go streaming is because they're scared of the theatre companies. What about when things go back to normal? What if they don't want to deal with us anymore? Well, they have to deal with you. And I said this before. There's an easy solution to that problem. Merge with the movie theatres and all your brother and sister studio companies and create a streaming platform for pay-per-view with the theatre companies and all the studios. If we are in this situation, which we will be for a very long time, create a streaming platform for pay-per-view, the movies go on there, people have to pay $10, $20, $30, euros or whatever. We've discussed this before on this channel, but they're not willing to do that. It's like economically, they're not thinking on a logical basis. They're just sitting there saying, it'll get better. It'll get better. Imagine if you were queuing up outside my bedroom right now, and I kept on delaying each of you coming in for a chat. What's going to happen? The queue's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. and you're never going to get to see me. Maybe I'll be able to see 20 people. And this is the same as the theatrical system and the movie release system. The more they postpone, the more of a backlog they're going to have. So none of this makes sense. So you've got two problematic opinions here. The one from the movie studios, who are living in hope. That's it. No plan B, no plan. And you've got the audience members, the consumer, who are so deluded. I want to see it in a cinema. I want to see it in a movie theatre. It's meant for the movie theatre. They don't understand. The world has changed. It's changed. And whatever you do, whatever you say, it will never change back. Sorry, I had a pop-up there. I had to deal with it. So, yeah, they believe that if they just sit back and hope for the best, the postponed movies will be shown in movie theatres. But what if nothing ever changes? Which is a really realistic situation. What's going to happen? What are you waiting for? I said it today on the DCEU Daily. How long do they wait till they release Wonder Woman 84? Patty Jenkins has said this herself, right? That there's been no discussion about streaming. No discussion whatsoever. What kind of a deluded industry takes that decision? We're not talking about it. I don't believe you, by the way, Patty, although it wouldn't surprise me. But you're talking about something very delusional. You don't have a plan B. You're making these films, you're spending $100 million, $200 million, whatever you spend on these movies, right? And you're not going to make money out of them. They're just going to sit there. They're just going to sit there gathering dust. We all know what the future is. We all know what has to happen. Waiting and seeing isn't going to change anything. What this does is the movie theatres will gather dust. The companies themselves will have to go bankrupt, right? They'll have to roll up. There'll be nothing released of any relevance. The audience will not go. They will have to shut up shop. The studios, who are worth trillions, won't be willing to subsidise these movie theatres. They won't be. They keep on telling us how that these postponements are about protecting movie theatres. You can't protect something by taking away the very essence that it needs. If you took away my food and drink, I would die. You can't say you're not eating, but I'm protecting you. That's the analogy here. And here's the problem. Nothing's changing. I read an article the other day apparently saying that Hollywood studios are very comfortable about what's going on right now. Are you insane? Are you insane? Because they think this isn't going to last very long. They actually believe that things are going to change next year and they're going to be able to release their movies. Not the case. Not the case. You're not going to get people back in movie theatres for at least, if you're lucky, just the first half of next year. But it might go beyond that. So that'll be year 2 of postponing movies and not having a plan B. Now, movies don't belong to me. They belong to the studios, and they have every right to make the decisions on economical basis. But these decisions are not good economical decisions. This is a capitalist industry living in denial, wishing things were the way they used to be. It's shit. There's a virus, which means a lot of us have to isolate. A lot of us have to wear masks. A lot of us can't spend time with our families, right? I probably won't be able to go to the UK to see my nephews, nieces, brothers and sisters for Christmas like I normally do. It sucks, but it is the way it is. So what do? Keep on praying for it to go back? Keep on praying that my ex takes me back when I know she won't, no matter how much she talks to me and smiles at me? That's the thing. We have got an industry living in denial. Denial, my friends. We want to see this stuff. Now there's the intelligent side of the audience and there's the stubborn side of the audience. I want to see it in a movie theatre. But you can't. You can't. You can't. You're never going to see that Bond film unless you see it on streaming. You're never going to see Wonder Woman 84 unless you see it on streaming. It's staggering to me because, again, I'll repeat myself, it's about hoping things can go back to the way they were. I'll make it clear to you again. Life's never going back to that. We will always be wearing masks. There will never, ever be a magical cure for this virus. And one day, we'll be immune to it. Maybe one day we can go back to the way we were. But it isn't happening anytime soon. And that is a dagger to my heart when I hear it, as well as a dagger to your heart. But what's the best thing to do here in terms of Hollywood and their economical structure? To deny it, to have... And let me just say this actually. What staggers me even more, beyond Hollywood having no plan B, is YouTubers and journalists not coming out and speaking the truth that I am. How many people are going to see this video? 10? 15? Not very many, because it's not even a DC video, right? They have got platforms and they won't speak up because they don't want to lose access. You see, I don't care about access because I've still got my sources, I still get the information I get, and I'll still see films before anybody else, and nothing's going to stop that happening. So I'm going to say whatever I want. I'm someone who's already seen Wonder Woman 84. I've spoken about it on this channel. But it's not fair on everybody else who hasn't seen it. So they're holding these films hostage, hoping that their exes will say, I'll take you back, hoping that movie theatres will become viable again. And the truth is, nobody knows when these movies will be viable again. But let's just sit here and live in denial and hold these movies hostage and say, we want you to see it on the biggest screen. That's all they've got. That's all the words they've got for you and me. We want you to see it on the biggest screen. No, we want it to make as much money as possible. But pay-per-view, streaming, it's done. You'll make the money. But they don't want to change. They're resisting change. They're living in denial. Everybody is. Them, the audiences. There's no cinematic experience anymore. It's done. It's finished. And the sooner people accept this, the better. But they won't. And the more they hear members of the audience saying, I'd rather see it in the cinema, the more they hold off on the release. So as I say, I want to give you an example here if they carry on like this. I've already said this, but I'll say it again. They refuse to release No Time to Die next year as well. They refuse to release Wonder Woman 84 next year as well. There's no Batman. There's no The Batman next year, 2022. There's no Shazam in 2022. That's in 2023. So the only blockbuster content you'll see is the one made for straight to streaming, like Zack Snyder's Justice League, and any other content he and David Ayer decides to make for HBO Max, whatever agreements they have. Nothing else. All of a sudden, they're going to be relying on Snyder and people like that a hell of a lot more. So what happens to James Gunn's The Suicide Squad? Now, Wonder Woman 84, a film that should have been released this year. Now, when do you release them? What do you do with them? Are we going to keep on reiterating we want you to see it on the biggest screen? How long do you live in denial? The second year? We're still in this situation? How long? The truth is, even if you don't agree with me, you know I'm speaking from a logical standpoint. People talk to me about the economical evaluation of Hollywood, and they're doing this because they want to make money. But they're not making money. This pandemic isn't something that's going to be over tomorrow. This pandemic isn't going to be over for the rest of this year, maybe for the rest of next year. What are you going to do, Hollywood? What are you going to do, Patty Jenkins? Keep on talking down to the audience about wanting us to see it on the biggest screen? How long? How long are you going to do this? Because in the end, you're going to get bankrupt out of your own stubbornness and stupidity. When we have the internet, we have a viable way of releasing these movies in as many theatres as we can, but also releasing them on pay-per-view on streaming. So you have two avenues here. You can still use the movie theatres as much as you can, but you can charge people $20 or $30, euros, whatever, so they can see these movies. And so you can bring back your $1 billion. Because there's more chance of people watching films from at home than there is of them having to leave their house and go to theatres anyway. But you've got the best of both worlds. That's a structure that Tenet should have used, but it didn't, out of pig-headedness. John Stankey, the head of Warner Media, has already spoken about this. It was a failure, but we're glad we did it. They're glad they did it because they wanted to test it, to see if they could make that money, if they could bring people to movie theatres. And to be fair, in the middle of a pandemic globally, 400 million is an amazing amount of money, but it's not good enough. What did it cost? 200 million to make? So what? They made a 200 million profit, not even that, after the marketing and all the rest of the shit they have to pay out for. So it wasn't viable. I don't know about the economics of Hollywood studios, and I could have told them not to do it, and it wasn't viable. But you see, they don't work on that narrative structure. They don't work on logic. They work on, I'm sure this will get better eventually. Here. And these are people who are running the economics of this industry. And you and me know more than them. We know that streaming's the future, but they don't want to embrace the digital world because they know what it means. Because once they embrace it, there's no going back. Because the movie theatre is a beautiful thing that's been going over 100 years. It's a beautiful thing, and they don't want to close it down. But whether they close it down or not officially, it already is closed down. It already is over. That's the heartbreaking thing about it. My girlfriend will never take me back. Even the girl I was in love with, who was dating my mate, and I still think about her every Christmas, and I play What If by Kate Winslet just to remind me of her. No matter how many times I think of her, it doesn't matter how many letters I write her, she still ignores me. And that is what this virus, this pandemic has done. It is forcing humanity to change. A great example is what's going on with Marcus Rashford. The government have refused to give children free school meals over the half-term, right? He has inspired companies and councils to do it instead of the government. Already, socialism is taking over because socialism is the only way that humanity can live on past this situation. Because economics and money and capitalism isn't going to work anymore. Companies are going to fold. But the movie industry is actually very fortunate if they get their asses into gear now, because they have the platform right via streaming, and whatever territories can still have their movie theatres open to make money. They have a system, as I said on the top of the show, to make the content. Sometimes they may have to shut down for a week or two if there's an outbreak of the virus, but mostly they can do things three-dimensionally. They can do things from their own homes. Animation, there's no issue there. You can bring the vocal artists in separately. They can even do it from their own homes. Hollywood can still make money. And it's important the entertainment is still there. But they are putting their own industry at risk by sitting there and saying, we want to go back to the way it was. How many old people say that? I wish it could be like the old days. I wish it was like the old days 20, 30 years ago when I was younger. But it's not going to happen. I am where I am. My life is here. How many times do I think about my mum and wish she was still alive, wish she was still screaming my name when she needed my help? But she's gone. No matter how much that breaks my heart, she's gone. And this is the problem with looking back when things change dynamically. You have to accept them. Hollywood has to accept the situation that they're in. Because as I say, they don't. The curtain call is over. We know that plays and musicals are very hard to do right now. The theatre has suffered a great deal. But ultimately, you have to find a new way of doing things. You can actually make a COVID-safe environment on the stage so the actors and the crew can work on the stage, and you can have audiences paying for tickets, watching their favourite plays playing in theatres via Zoom. That's the future, because you can have small groups of people watching it from the theatres, and you can also have people watching it from Zoom. But it has to be a clear picture, of course. That's the future. But again, these people are not embracing the change that this pandemic has given us, not embracing the future. And I spoke about capitalism being on trial at the very start of this video. And as I say, capitalism is in denial, because capitalism doesn't want to lose. It wants to hold over you. But interestingly, if we change the way we do things, capitalism can still survive. But unfortunately, the great example of capitalism holding on to the old way is Hollywood. Postponing film after film after film. Listening to people say, I want to see it in the cinema. Backwards, childish mentality. Your world has changed. My world has changed. We have to embrace it so we can economically move forward, so we can eat in the morning and at lunch and at night, and we can have a roof over our heads. And this is what the Hollywood studio model has to do. You have found a way to keep on making your product. You've done well. Now you have to embrace the fact that you must release your content via streaming and through movie theatres at the same time. And you will still make the same amount of money as you normally did, right? You can have groups of people watching it on Zoom and talking about it while they're watching it, if that's what they want to do. The opportunities financially are bigger than ever before. But you just have to bite the bullet and accept that the world has changed. Everybody, the world has changed. I want all of you to see Wonder Woman 84 so I can finally discuss it. I want to see No Time to Die. I want to see all these films that were made for us so we could make the studios money. But while this studio system is living in denial, we continue to live in this Groundhog Day. Comment down below. I'd love to hear your views about this. Like, share and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with more videos. See you again soon.